In this third installment of my 5-part series on 10 entrepreneur leverage points, I'm reviewing the last 2 operations leverage points, backlogs and front logs. Managing your leverage points is essential to achieving your company's maximum profitability, cash flow, return on equity, and company value. Hello, my name is Brant Friesen. My specialty has always been working with companies to build their best possible future. I work with company owners and their teams to help them identify the high leverage points and the systems that make up their operating, investing, and finance activities, and working together, we design and implement high leverage policies to take advantage of the high leverage points and maximize profits, cash flow, return on equity, and company value. A disclaimer here. Later in this video, I'll introduce you to the Profit Lever Pro 3D Rapid Test and Validation Simulator. I designed and operate this SaaS application. The Profit Lever Pro Simulator is particularly suited for monitoring and managing the dynamic nature of backlogs and front logs. So what are backlogs and front logs? Backlogs list the details of customer orders that haven't been started or are in progress. Front logs list the opportunities that you're pursuing for new customer orders. Backlogs and front logs are the most shareable of the 10 entrepreneur leverage points. Every team member in a company has an interest in backlog and front log activity. Backlogs and front logs are both day-to-day and leading indicators of company performance. Backlogs and front logs are always in the news because they change so frequently, sometimes in small ways and sometimes in large ways. Backlogs and front logs bring together the previous 4 operations leverage points: customer categories and channels, pricing, value and demand, production and service drum, and product and service rankings. Backlog and front log data also links to accounts in investing and finance activities. Managing backlogs and front logs has 2 components: fast, real-time updating to reflect actual events, and rapid test and validation simulations to deal with situations, setup, and structural changes. Companies that share their backlog and front log and manage them for collaboration achieve a higher level of focus and motivation than companies who have a weak backlog and front log process or choose to limit the sharing of their backlog and front log. There is a backlog and front log mindset. Both backlogs and front logs are about the future. Backlogs list awarded work that hasn't been completed. Front logs list opportunities for work that hasn't been awarded. Backlogs and front logs can also list the future billings to customers separately. When there's a payment schedule involved that doesn't correspond to the timing of the revenue earned on a customer order. It would appear the principles and thinking about backlogs and front logs only applies to make-to-order, project-based companies. I see the future mindset that applies to make-to-order, project-based companies also applies to fast turnaround make-to-order companies, make-to-stock companies, and make-to-stock and assemble-to-order companies. Let's see if the following discussion supports my claim. Let's go back to the Blue Pony VFX studio and have a look at how they manage their backlog and front log. Blue Pony does post-production VFX work on a show-by-show basis. The format in their backlog and front log is show working title, which may be different from the final title, customer's name, production company that may not be the eventual owner of the show, total revenue awarded to Blue Pony for its work on the show, vendor spend for work that will not be performed by the Blue Pony crew of artists and production coordinators, contribution margin, which is the total revenue minus the vendor spend, gross profit, which is the contribution margin minus the crew spend. The total amounts are spread over the months the show will be in progress. We see the billings in a month don't equal the revenue that will be earned in that month. The billings are based on reaching milestones or on payment schedules, which were established during contract negotiations. The grid is the same for a backlog and front log, except the front log has a factoring percentage calculation. Unlike the backlog of shows that have been awarded, the shows listed in the front log may not proceed to award, and Blue Pony's share of the final award is not certain. Front log show totals are factored by a percentage to account for these 2 uncertainties. As we saw in video 3, $2 million of monthly show revenue achieves an optimum utilization of Blue Pony's compositing team. Blue Pony has set up their crew complement so their compositing team is the drum in their workflow. They have 21 compositors in their crew complement. To fully utilize these compositors, they target $4,800 per day of show revenue for each compositor. This works out to an average of $2 million of show revenue per month. Blue Pony's front log, even with factoring applied, is well over $2 million per month. They're in effect overbooking their crew complement. This is a high leverage policy decision. They know in many cases shows get pushed out from their initial project start dates, so if they don't overbook their front log, they won't achieve the optimum crew utilization of $2 million of revenue per month. Let's look at how the backlog and front log grids tie into the other operations leverage points. Revenues in each month provide the top-line runway that extends to the last month of the revenues in the front log. The same goes for the contribution margin and the gross profit amounts. The vendor spend goes to accounts payable. The crew spend is a cash disbursement. The billings are entered into accounts receivable. Accounts payable, cash disbursements, and accounts receivable are inputs into Blue Pony's cash position. Because billings in a month don't equal the revenues in a month, the backlog and front log tell Blue Pony which shows will result in work in process and which shows will result in unearned revenue. Going back to leverage point 1, customer categories and channels, the backlog and front log show Blue Pony the customers they're working with and the customer opportunities they're pursuing. For example, Blue Pony has established relationships with Disney, Warner Bros. Discovery, Paramount CBS, NBC Universal, Amazon MGM, Apple Plus, Sony Pictures, and Netflix. But it has no backlog of work with Paramount CBS or Sony Pictures, and it's not pursuing any opportunities with Amazon MGM or NBC Universal. Going back to leverage point 3, production and service drum, the backlog totals for October 2025 and January 2026 are below Blue Pony's $2 million optimal utilization threshold. The good news is Blue Pony has time to fill these potholes in their backlog. They can work with their customers to grow the shows by working with them to take on more shots than were originally awarded. They can also work with their customers to pull in the start dates for shots if the shots are ready for post-production and the customers can take the shots when Blue Pony has finished them. They can work with other VFX studios they have working relationships with to see if there's a shot work they can send their way during October 2025 and January 2026. Going back to leverage point 2, pricing, value, and demand, the backlog and front log lists pricing and cost by show and production company. Going forward, Blue Pony can see how their pricing is stacking up. Blue Pony can also see how their participation in each show positions them on the veil in relation to other VFX studios who are participating in the show. Blue Pony may be the anchor VFX vendor, or they may be in a lower position on the veil for a show. Going back to leverage point 3, product and service rank, Blue Pony uses the backlog and front log grid to simulate a database of shows. The simulated database of shows is rerun while the shows are in progress and finalized when the shows are wrapped and delivered. Let's look at the link to Blue Pony's bidding, daily time tracking, and swim lane scheduling system. This matrix shows the budget and schedule status of the shows in Blue Pony's backlog. We see that shows can be tracking as planned, that is, on schedule and on budget. At the extremes, a show can be running behind schedule and over budget, or ahead of schedule and under budget. A show can be under budget, behind schedule, which may mean it can come back on schedule with more crew and vendor spend. A show that's ahead of schedule and over budget can come back in line as crews complete the work on the show and are no longer billed to the show. Now let's look at 3D rapid test and validation simulations, the elite race team approach to backlog and front log management. Elite race teams, like those in Formula One, use rapid test and validation simulators to adapt to changes in situations, such as weather conditions, and going from racetrack to racetrack. In setup changes, such as aerodynamic, engine tuning, shift point, suspension, steering, tires, braking, etc., structural changes, such as chassis and wings, engine and transmission, suspension and running gear, etc. Race teams do not have the time or the resources, access to racetracks, extra race cars, drivers, and support teams to run physical tests on how they think their drivers should be racing or how their cars should be set up or redesigned to be more competitive. Elite race teams can't be competitive without the use of simulators for their drivers and simulators for their cars. Elite companies also understand the competitive advantage rapid test and validation simulations give them. Blue Pony uses the modular 3D simulator from Profit Lever Pro that tests the simultaneous effect of changes in their operating, investing, and finance activities. The Profit Lever Pro simulator compresses time and allows for an infinite running of scenarios to test policy choices. The 3D simulator that Blue Pony uses includes fully integrated backlog and front log modules that will accommodate an infinite number of shows. Blue Pony realizes their backlogs and front logs are so dynamic, it's impossible to make informed decisions about show bidding, crewing, vendor spend, studio partnering, show selection, and scheduling without rapid test and validation simulation. The fully integrated 3D backlogs and front logs in the Profit Lever Pro simulator handle these issues. The backlogs and front logs are used to monitor and simulate when revenue is recognized, when variable costs are incurred, when billings are made, and what the work in process or unearned revenue will be, and what the accounts receivable and cash position will be. Because the Profit Lever Pro simulator is full 3D, Blue Pony teams can see the integrated effect on future income, cash flow, and balance sheet statements and dashboards. Blue Pony uses the backlog and front log modules in the Profit Lever Pro simulator to track and manage their backlog and front log of shows. The backlog and front log modules rank as one of Blue Pony's most shared leverage point management tools. Now let's review the Investing High Leverage Points. Click on this link to watch the 4th installment of my 5-part series of 10 entrepreneur leverage points. Tech stack investments and hardware equipment and facility investments. Thanks for watching.